Welcome to the Infernal Schoolhouse Podcast, Explosions and Fire. I'm Brian,
And I'm Aaron.
and today on the podcast, we're joined by special guests Courtney and Lycan from live play stream Dungeons and Divergence. Did I say that
Hi.
right?
Yes, that is correct. That is correct.
Amazing. New friends, welcome so much to the show. We're thrilled to have you on.
It is great to be here. Honestly, we were
very excited for this.
That's great.
Yeah, and I'll even start with a compliment to the little skit that you all put on. I thought was wonderful and quirky and quite great timing from a comedic standpoint as well. So nice job.
I tried. That is just exactly how we live our lives.
Yeah, it really
as
is.
People who never don't see each other. It's just how we live our lives on a daily basis.
Yeah.
That's great. So
I'm really
for
glad
our
those
listeners,
shirts came in on time too.
yeah, no, those are great, and they look good too. I like the fashion sense you got there, so it's good.
Yeah, it's pretty
So
good. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
maybe we'll launch into just some introductions. Can you tell us a little bit about yourselves, and then kind of how you came to be chatting with us today?
Yeah, I mean, do you want to go first? You want me to?
No, that's why I looked at you.
Oh, okay. So I'm Courtney, obviously. Well, I guess that's not an obvious thing. I'm Courtney. So their divergence is in the name for a reason.
Sure is.
I am 27 and I've been playing D&Ds for a long time. Like my dad played it obviously in the 70s, and I played with him, and it was the old school, like you roll a dice for your character and that's it. And so, I grew up playing D&D, and I'd stopped playing D&D for a long time, and then like 2 years ago I met them.
Yeah.
And they were playing D&D with a group, and I was like, man, I haven't played D&D in a long time, and they said you should play with us, and I said, I
said
know.
You're playing with us.
I said, you said you should play with us, and I said, I don't know, and you said you're playing with us, and I said, oh, okay. That's fine. And so we started playing, but at the time I wasn't a DM, I was just a player, and that lasted all of 2 seconds. I legitimately sat in, because I was like a show up character, right? Like I was a surprise character. So I sat in a room for 2 hours while they played to show up and play for 30 minutes and then never play that campaign again.
Yeah, it was a rough time.
It was bad.
The dark ages.
So then I was like, you know what? What if I DM? What if I get my little fingers in a world and make something myself? And they were like, yeah, sure, why not? So
yeah, pretty much.
It's the verbatim.
I got a lot more insistent after that, but yeah.
And I've always been into, so I went to school at Full Sail for computer animation, so I've always been into like cartoons and all the fantasy things and writing stories. Like it's always creating characters. It's always been a part of my life. So I was like, this seems like, because I was anticipating just writing books, because I write anyway, and so I was like, oh, I'll just try this. Like it's like writing, right? But you get a live reaction. It's nothing like that, but it's fine.
Amen. I made the same mistake, by the way, when I started too.
Nothing like that at all, actually. So cool. But so I decided that I would try it, and I whipped up a world in like 3 weeks, 2 weeks. It was
really short.
Was so fast.
For as much as you made in that amount of time, it was a very short amount of time.
And because I'm neurodivergent, because I have ADHD, I can't do something halfway. If I'm interested in it, I have to do the whole thing. So I made a map for it and everything, but so I DM'd for that the first time ever 2 years ago, and man,
well, you DM'd the first time about a year ago,
year and a half ago, yeah. And I'm obsessed with it. Yeah, I can't stop. So, and then we decided, let's make a group, and so here we are.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I guess. Yeah. I'm Lycan. My pronouns are they them. I have been playing D&D, honestly, not near as long as her. I started playing like right outside of high school. I'm 24, almost 25.
I love how you questioned that. Like,
well, I mean, because you said 27, you're not 27 quite yet.
My birthday's in 2 weeks.
I know, but yeah.
I feel like
and I'm like a couple days after you, so potato. So I've been playing like roughly outside of high school ish. They were never great games. They never lasted very long. It was just enough to get me to like it. And I really started getting into it by watching like Critical Role, and watching that for years and years now. But I've never really had like a steady group or a campaign that I've really played with. And then when we started playing with our friend, not long after I met her,
which, not to interrupt you, but I just want to slide in the fact that I was their boss.
Oh yeah, she hired me for a job.
I hired them, and then it went.
I guess that is pretty important.
That's really important.
I'm so used to skirting past that now.
I'm just not used to that part
she hired me for a job, and that probably was a mistake.
We always
see each other.
We always like to say, "Hey, I put your social security number in for a job."
Yeah,
and now here we are.
Put my information into the mass computer, and now this is where we're
anyway,
at.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but not long after we met each other, I started playing with some mutual friends. Obviously, we're not playing with them anymore, but it was the transition of playing with them to her joining, to her being like, I kind of want to DM and be like, do it. You should do it.
Do it.
And then now this is where we're at. Yeah. Much shorter than her whole spiel. I don't have much interesting things to say as far as D&D goes.
There's no time limit.
That's right.
I guess I could say like I'm also an art student. I'm currently in school right now because I went back to get my degree. So I'm doing just graphic design for my degree right now. Really into How to Train Your Dragon. So she has ADHD, but I also have ADHD, but I'm also autistic. So that's just like one of my major hyperfixations is How to Train Your Dragon.
I have dyslexia, and it's so hard to have ADHD and dyslexia and be a DM because I'm over here reading my notes and I'm like, Like, so in the original campaign, the main, because I always like to slip in a character just to help guide along people, just in case like I'm DMing that and they don't understand what's going on, so I can just slip in the character and be like, it's over here.
That's literally never happened, but go on.
Anyway, so I made a character named Torin in my first campaign, and because I'm so dyslexic, I kept spelling her name wrong. Because originally I named her Tyrion.
That's not right.
But I'm so dyslexic. I switched the spelling of her name constantly. And so when I went back in my notes when we first started, I was like, that doesn't sound right.
No, whatever you had originally was disgusting and clearly wrong.
Oh,
so.
Well, okay. Thanks.
Well, thank you for the introduction and so much to go off of. The next thing that I'm curious about is the decision to start streaming. I think you've touched on it briefly, but I get that having a regular group to play with is amazing and to be celebrated. But talk me through this decision to actually stream online. And second part of the question, is it as stressful as it sounds?
So the streaming, so the streaming part, so the streaming part itself is not stressful. Like, it's not as stressful as you would think. So
the actual going live part, honestly, isn't that stressful.
Yeah, because you just press a button and you're like, and we're playing D&D now.
There's the occasional hiccups, obviously, because we're just starting, we're figuring out all the kinks and things. But honestly, that part isn't very hard.
Yeah, so I, back in 2018, 2019,
that was before I met you. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I actually was a Twitch streamer. I did that for a little bit, and I was affiliated, and I knew like all the goings on about it and like all the specs and that sort of stuff. And so to me, it was kind of like super easy. We just stream, just turn on a camera, and we just do it. We just do it. And so like our first conversation wasn't necessarily like, let's turn this into a business. We were just like, let's stream. And we were like, well, actually, because we
talked about it for a long time.
Yeah.
We were like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we streamed? And we just like wouldn't talk about it for a few weeks and then be like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if maybe we streamed this?
It's important to also note we always do this where we're like, what if we like,
yeah, we'll debate things back and forth for
I don't know why I'm going to criminal activity. The first thing I'm thinking is like, let's steal a car. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why it's immediate GTA action, but yeah, we'll just be like, well, why don't we just start a business about sewing? Why don't we just start a this?
Yeah.
Like, why don't we just make $1 million corporation?
A lot of those ideas.
Like we do that all the time, so we didn't take ourselves seriously for the longest time about it.
But also, like, you were still really new to DMing at the time.
Yeah,
so
and I was like, I'm not gonna go.
Wouldn't it be weird and quirky if we did this thing?
Wouldn't it be crazy if we were like high rollers in Critical Role? Like we
it was a pipe dream essentially.
We were like, nah. So it was just, fiddle farting around. It was just joking around.
And whenever we were having these little side talks and conversations, be like, we should do this, maybe it'd be kind of cool, maybe. We were playing with a completely different group at the time.
A group as in it was me, you, and one other person.
Okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
And
it gets a little iffy if you wherever you look in the timeline, but pretty much, yeah, it was us three. We had problems with that. It was a lot of timing problems and in-game problems and out-of-game problems.
Which was another reason why it was just a pipe dream. We were just like, we'll never find reliable people to play with.
And we tried really hard. Like, once we were actually like, we kind of want to do this.
Yeah.
We tried really hard to like
get
everyone
with
into the idea of doing it. And then we introduced your husband into the idea to see if maybe adding more people would help. If it was like a comfortability thing.
And that didn't work either.
It didn't work either. So it was a process of, we had the idea, we really wanted to do it. We tried to implement it and create like a structure for it. And we would just get beaten back.
Yeah. Because
they didn't want to
and it's
participate
in that. It's important to know as well, again, from our perspective, since we're neurodivergent and most people are like that we interact with on a daily basis aren't, we thought maybe we were just taking it way too seriously because we would set rules like you can't get up from the table, because the guy that we were playing with at the time, the only other person we were playing with, was like, I gotta take like 20-minute smoke breaks like every 15 minutes. And so like we couldn't really get anywhere.
You couldn't get into a game.
And we were like, nah, dude, you can't do that if we're like streaming. And he was like, well, and so we thought like they had told us we were just taking it too seriously. And so we were like, yeah, maybe we are. Maybe this just isn't something we can do. And then we had thought about maybe we do a podcast, because then we're not live streaming. You can get up, we can edit the audio, whatever.
We don't have to record you if you're uncomfortable with like visually being recorded. Yeah, we tried a lot of different things, and no matter what we tried, they never really seemed to be interested in participating in it. So eventually we kind of just gave up, and then we were having problems with playing at all. Because
really
of this person.
So we went like 6 months without playing.
Yeah, we went 6 months without playing.
The current campaign that we're playing, we had actually started to try to play with that guy.
Him and your husband.
Yeah, and it was not working out. It was not working out.
I mean, there would be times where he wouldn't even
show
up at all for the session,
but not tell us.
We would hear nothing from him. We didn't. And then the next time we talked to him, whenever, would be like, "Oh, hey guys, what's up?"
Yeah.
This sounds pretty typical to me from my experience with, playing D&D. Is scheduling is always the biggest challenge. So since we're kind of deep in this topic already, I'd love to hear, and maybe you both can kind of just go in turns and just tell me a little bit about the intersection of D&D and neurodivergence. And this is a newer topic for me to be thinking about. And so I'm just kind of curious the way that you think about it, and how you maybe could talk us through it as if we didn't know the first thing, because in my case, that's actually true.
About neurodivergency, or just how it relates to D&D?
The intersection specifically is where I'm going. But there may be some parts where you really just do need to talk about the specifics.
Well, if you want to talk about the autism part, because I don't have that. I don't have the tism, so I can't, but I can talk about the ADHD part.
Yeah. So at least for me personally, one of my things is I hyperfixate really hard on things that I really enjoy. So so D&D became one of those things that I really enjoy. It's because it's good. I really enjoy, and I want to put all of my time and all of my energy towards it.
Yeah.
And I know that I can't do that. I'm a full-time student, but also like I have to like take care of myself. I can't just play D&D for 23 hours in a day every single day, like unless despite me wanting to. So the hyperfixation's great because I can get really into like the role play, and I love the strategy of combat and like building characters. I'm in the point where I really like doing unique things with my characters, either with my races, my classes, the way that they do things, their personality. I'm introducing more like mental illnesses into my characters themselves, just to kind of give them that kind of wide diversity.
Interesting.
Just because I'm in the point where I enjoy being able to expand my horizons on that. But at the same time, with the hyperfixation, it's all I can think about.
Yeah.
And it's not great for when I need to like take care of myself and eat and like take a shower and change
an actual responsible adult,
have a job and go to class, and it has its perks and it has its downsides. That's for absolute certain.
Yeah, and I know a lot of that is very in tandem with ADHD, like because I struggle with remembering things that I'm not interested in, but I remember every single tiny little detail about everything that has to do with D&D ever at all.
Yep.
So like I'll forget to pay a bill, but don't worry, I'll remember exactly what I need to do for the campaign when it comes up. On session 4, I know exactly what that tiny minute thing I was going to do to Tyrell is. Yep.
I know what this specific NPC said on this specific session, and if you ask me this specific question about this specific subclass, I can tell you everything that you need to know. But I forget that my assignments are due all the time.
Yeah. And so, there are good parts about it, like you said. And like for me, since I have ADHD and dyslexia, I have this very creative part of my brain. And so I call myself a modern day bard because I like to write stories. It's kind of the same thing as what bards do. And so I just lie awake at night because I have insomnia, because of my ADHD, and just think about D&D. Like that's all I can do is just think and create. Like I will text them multiple times a day within the 2 weeks span of the time that we don't play, where I'm like, I just came up with like 16 new ideas.
Yeah.
But like
I will literally I'll get texts at 3 a.m. going,
I just had
this idea for the campaign, and I wake up and I go,
oh
no. What did you do this time?
And the way that relates to our reality, our world, we are so sucked up into fantasy, and it is fantasy, but it's real life to us. Like it's something that we genuinely enjoy, and we know that role playing and our characters are not real. It's just when to us it's extremely deeply important, as it would be if it was a person. And so how it relates to real world reality to other people who are not neurodivergent, they see it as just a board game. You know how like you wouldn't get that attached to Monopoly, you wouldn't get that attached to Sorry or Uno or anything that you play at like a family gathering. And so for us, when we sit down at the table, we make sure we're there on time. We make sure we already have all of our stuff organized. We have all of our thoughts planned out for like we've thought about it from the moment we stopped playing last week to the moment we're playing 2 weeks from now. Like that is what we take it as seriously as we would a job. And most people don't do that. Like anybody who takes it, and it's as serious as a job for us. And most people are just like, this is just like a regular fun game we get to play casually with friends.
This is our hangout thing.
And like you said, how you introduce mental illnesses to it, like it's like if you sat down and watched a movie and you took it very seriously, like and so when we play with people who are not generally who are not neurodivergent, they don't have the same dedication to it as we do. And so they're just like, I'm going to be here for an hour. And we're like, no, this is a 6-hour dedication time. You got to clock in and clock out. Like
there is also the aspect that I'm really fascinated in, because I'm also a LARPer. So I do that whole aspect of the role playing as well. But the whole aspect of being able to figure out problems and learn social dynamics in the safe environment of role play.
Yeah.
Something that's so helpful for so many people that I know, and me myself. And I find that really interesting how role play could be so diverse, just depending on the kind of scenario that you're in, the kind of person you're playing, the people that you're playing with, and how it can help you then in turn learn how to deal with problems in your real life. It gives you more confidence. You know how to react in certain situations. You understand people on a broader spectrum a lot better than you could before, just because you're stepping
introduced into more diverse people.
Yeah, you're stepping into a completely different person aside from yourself, or maybe it is someone exactly like yourself, and that is how you choose to navigate this
a new scenario,
safe world where you can learn how to process these kind of situations in a way that you can then utilize later on and feel more confident in yourself and what you're doing.
Yeah, it's great.
I find that so interesting.
Yeah, and I it makes me think about I think kind of a question I would tack onto it, because I myself have ADHD, so I understand the ups and downs of that.
Yeah.
So I guess I would just ask the both of you what your advice would be for people who are neurodivergent in either being good DMs or good players at a table.
And how to be a good DM or a good player?
Yeah.
You want to answer
dealing with neurodivergent issues? Like, for example, when I'm doing any DMing, I am very similar. I will hyper fixate on something, and then I will take lots of notes. But I have to make sure that I consistently put things on calendars, or that I write them down in a way that makes sense to me. That way I can then translate it to somebody else. So what are some of those things that maybe that you use as a little tool or a tip that you would give?
For me personally, as a player, I'm the note taker of the table. I am. If you watch the streams close enough, I am almost constantly writing something down because something has happened and I want to make a note of it. Someone said something and I want to make a note of it. We got an item and I want to make a note of it, so that way, A, I remember, B, their players remember, and
remember.
C, she remembers.
Yeah, because with DMing, you just improv a lot of things. And so if I'm like if they're like, I go into this store, and I was like, I was not prepared for you to go into a store at all.
What was this store's name again? And then I flip through my notes and I go, this is what the store's name was. Yeah, it's helpful on a lot of different things. But yeah, as far as like how to be a good player with ADHD or some kind of mental illness, notes are good. You don't have to. Even just like little like secondhand notes of like someone you met that you might think is important, someplace you went that you might go again, some item that you got that might become useful later. Even just like little notes like that are really helpful. Just making sure that your space is organized in a way that you can get everything that you need. It's all right there. You don't have to go searching for it and digging, and you don't have to like flip through the player's handbook to like find 4 different things that you need mid-combat, because you don't have the list of everything that you need right in front of you. I personally use D&D Beyond for my character sheet because it has everything listed right there.
It's very easy.
I don't have to go very far to find something that I need.
And it's so easy just to search things up. It's just really nice.
Yeah. Really, it's learning how your brain works and then working with it instead of against it.
Because that's how I am. So as a DM, I'm so bad. I can write things down before streams. I can write, or sessions, I can write things down and my ideas down. I have notes everywhere. I have like 2 different apps on my phone of different notes.
2
like
apps?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Yes, it's stressful. I have like 16 different notebooks because of my ADHD. I'm like, I like this notebook all of a sudden right now.
We do also, because we hyperfixate on it. We have notebooks for every single one of our characters,
and that's how we keep them organized.
Yeah,
but
for me, we have a lot of notebooks.
For me as a DM, I try not to cut down my hyperfixating because it does help me create such amazing stories and ideas and all of that. But because I write all of my stuff down in the moment when things are improvised, I don't write them down because I'm so invested in what I'm doing that having somebody. And for me as a DM, I tell everyone ahead of time, like before we ever start sessions, like, I have ADHD. there are going to be things that I forget. So if you all are note takers or you are interested in taking notes, please do, because there are going to be things that I say and don't remember.
It happens a lot.
It happens a lot. But because I have note takers, it does help a lot. And actually things that inspire that idea to write things down for, that's usually what I'll go for. So like we specifically have what we call a tome. It's the tome of my world. And so it helps because I like it, and I like
Indigo North.
Well, yeah. And it helps promote some type of serotonin in my brain that rewards me every time I write in it. So when I write in it, it helps remind me to go back to it and be like, oh, I remember my information was in there because it's the tome, because it makes me happy. Like, and so for me to keep all of my information in that helps out a lot.
That's great.
And then I know to reference it, and I don't lose my notes, you know.
I know you have some kind of organization system, and you won't let me look in it, so I don't know. But
organization system, sure.
I don't know. I feel like
it's chaos, but it makes sense in my brain.
There you go.
That's great.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Aaron.
No. You know, I was just going to add on that one of the things I like doing is to sometimes, as a DM, change up plot points based upon little things that might happen. Like, for example, earlier when you talked about the NPC you had where you kept giving the different name for them, I would have just eventually had that NPC be somebody who's like essentially just different copies from the multiverse showing up with different versions of
and that's exactly what I do. Yeah, exactly. Where I'm like, what, like, I've done that so many times where like, and now this is just two separate people. Like, I'll just
you have
suddenly sure have.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You just don't
This is how you find out, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess.
Don't tell anyone.
I'm learning stuff today.
They think
That's
you're a
right.
genius. It's so great.
That's
That anybody who has ADHD and likes to write stories, be a DM, because that will give you such confidence, because people will think you're cool for making mistakes.
I will also say
That's
though,
So good.
DMs with ADHD or any mental illness, please take care of yourself.
Yeah.
The amount of times that she's been sitting and writing all day long, and then she looks over and tells me, I feel like crap. What's wrong? I don't know. Am I hungry? I don't know what's going on. I'm like, have you eaten today? Have you drank water? When's the last time you slept?
Yeah.
And she just goes,
yeah, that's
That
true.
must be
well,
That must be it.
please
Okay,
take
so-
care of yourself.
Thank you for that. And I want to ask I guess, a related question. But is there advice that you'd like to share for folks not specifically in this community that want to be supportive or helpful, or at least not hinder your ability to engage in the hobby?
As far as like D&D goes?
Yeah,
Yeah,
if we're
how you
thinking
can be
about at the
helpful.
table,
Oh.
the D&D community. And so, for instance, if, and I loved, I think Courtney said this, one of you said this, that self-identification at the beginning, I think would be incredibly helpful. So
Yeah.
if I'm in a place where I'm at the table with someone, a DM or a fellow player, they've identified these types of things. And I'm genuinely asking this because I don't
Yeah.
really know the answer, but
Yeah.
what sort of advice could you give me for how to engage with that person to be supportive and, you know, help them and help the table have fun?
I think that is so something we did when we set out to find new players to be able to actually do this with is we met everyone individually, and then we met everybody together, because I think it's really important to get a feel of the person, especially if you're not used to them, to get to know them at least on a super basic level, to see how accepting they are of these are kind of the rules that we have, you know, as a basic overview, right? And then once everybody comes together, you can kind of get a little deeper and be like, so I have ADHD. I lose track of a lot of things, like just be patient with me. I want you to correct me if I've forgotten something. Lay it out very basic, because I know for some people who are not neurodivergent, they are uncomfortable with kind of being like, hey, you forgot something, because they don't want to make us feel stupid. And that is I understand that's a very fine line, like to correct somebody who you know isn't purposely trying to forget something, and you don't want to make them feel stupid, especially if they're DMing. Like, some people are very serious about the way they DM and they don't like to be interrupted, blah, blah, blah. But I know for me, like, I'm just very plain with it. Like, please tell me you got the name wrong. That's not how you say it. Or, you know, remember you didn't say it that way last time, or we weren't in that store. We actually started this way. I think actually the last time I tried to do my recap, I had skipped forward a little bit in the recap.
Yeah,
and
I was
Patrick
like,
actually,
one of us, I think, was like, no, actually,
Yeah.
this happened, and then this happened, and then that
for
happened.
me, it's a lot easier if somebody's just natural with it. If somebody's just like it's a natural conversation where they're like, well, actually, remember this happened, you know. So it's just kind of knowing yourself and what makes you comfortable in the environment. Because I know for me, I was really nervous about DMing for new people because I didn't want them to know. I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to be bad. And with me being having ADHD and dyslexia, I was really nervous. Like, I'm going to pronounce some things wrong sometimes. Sorry. Like, but I'm just very open with that and being like, tell me, correct me. You know, I want to be correct, and just be gentle. Like, it's really not that hard just to be gentle. And also along with that, because it's not something that I'm personally affected by, but like me and most of the people at the table are specific to an idea, and they're the only one that's different to that, right? So they have pronouns. Nobody else really goes by that, right? But not really. And so it's not something that we're used to. We're used to being assigned at birth what we are, right? And so it's just natural for us to say what we see. And so I think it's also really important to be kind to people and forgiving to people who do mess up about things, like how you were with Patrick. You know, so it's just kind of easier to know the people beforehand and be like, hey, as long as we all are nice and we know we disagree on some things, or I know that you're different than I am, but let's just all, as an overview, have a general kindness to each other. We all just want to play D&D. Like, if we mess up on something, we mess up on something. Like, if I forget something, I forget it.
And then I'll probably remind you of
and then, okay, the difference is we're mean to each other.
That is the difference. We've literally, I can't think of, aside from when I went on that trip that one time, I don't think
we've ever spent
time. We spent too much time together at this point. It's too much time.
But
should we have separated you? Should we have separated you for this interview?
Probably. That was for your sanity. That's probably for the best.
Like on stream, I'm pretty sure you told me to shut up once.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I've told you a few times. Yeah.
So that's different though.
Yeah. Well, that's just how we work together. But kind of going back to the whole neurodivergent thing, and also, going back to the whole neurodivergent thing, and also kind of going off something I said earlier, if you are someone who is neurotypical and interacting with a neurodivergent person, just learning how their brain works
as best you can,
can make things so much easier for both parties. It's really it sounds simpler than it is, but it really is that simple. You just learn how their brain works, how the things that they do and how they function, and then work with it instead of being like, no, we're doing things this way, and if you don't do it this way, then we're gonna have a problem.
Kind of like how we told you all we're gonna go off on tangents. Yeah. And obviously we're doing it right now. Like, I'm noticing that I'm talking so much and for so long, and it embarrasses me. But like, we have being able to tell you guys, like, we go off on tangents, we're so sorry, like, and just being like, that's okay, like, we'll just steer you along naturally, like that. That makes us feel comfortable to go off on tangents, and then you all be like, and we're back on topic. Like,
that's very helpful. Thank you for answering that question for me.
I think that's a solid advice too, about just trying to understand other people. And I think it's interesting too, you know, the great advances they've made in understanding neurodiversity and kind of what that means. And I thought about this the other day. I don't know if you're familiar with Tiny Tim the musician at all.
Yes.
I've heard it. So I thought about this as a kid, watching Tiny Tim play and just kind of thinking it was silly and funny and laughing at it. But then I go back and I watch it now. I watched it the other day and I was like, wow, this is definitely somebody who's neurodivergent. And he's just like the butt of the joke for everyone. And then there was like no understanding about this man's art and brain and everything else around him. And I think that we're at a greater place now in society where we can ask those questions and have those conversations. So
Aaron, that's officially our first Tiny Tim reference on the podcast. Well done.
Yes.
Hashtag Tiny Tim. Remind me to put that in.
That's right. Okay, so 2 more questions and then we'll wrap it up here. So the first one is, we're going to start a Monster of the Week stream pretty soon in March. And curious, since you're such experts at streaming now, if you'll give it a watch and give us your notes on how we're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. Cool. And then is there anything that you wanted to have us ask you that you want to talk about, or anything that you just want to talk about?
Oh, see, that's such a bad question because I could think of anything. Yeah. I could think of nothing.
That's really a loaded question, and also
it sure is.
Fast forward 5 hours, still talking.
Yeah, right. Like I'll message you all later and be like, I had so many questions now.
Yeah, it's like I couldn't think of anything on the call, and now I've thought of like 20 different things.
Yeah.
So
I mean, not really. I know that if you're playing with people that you don't think would be dedicated, just try it, because one of the players that we have, Patrick, I actually have known him since I was like 12 or 13. We haven't talked in like 10 years, and then I just posted on Facebook that I wanted some players to play with, and he was like, hey, what's up? I'm forever DM. I want to play. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. And he showed up and he whipped out a character and just smoothly glided.
Yeah, that was
right into my story.
Crazy.
Just give it a chance.
Yeah. I guess both honestly, in game and out of game, don't be afraid to take risks. Yeah. Like it makes for such a good story. It makes such a good story.
Don't be afraid to role play.
Don't be afraid to role. I know it's awkward. If you're not used to it. I get it. Trust me. LARPing is also incredibly awkward because you're actually like dressed as the person. Don't be afraid to role play.
It's so much fun.
It can completely change the game. It's
so
good.
Like some people get really nervous about it, and they're like, "Oh well, I don't want to be silly. I don't want to be made fun of."
I was absolutely that person. Like, I'm not gonna role play. That's weird. I'm uncomfortable with myself. I'm uncomfortable playing this person. I'm not gonna do this. I don't know how. And then you kind of you practice a little bit, and you practice a little more, and then it gets a little easier, and it completely opens up the world in front of you.
Yeah.
And some of the best moments we've had with playing with each other came from purely role play moments. Yeah. No combat, no DM guidance. It was purely character on character role play, and that's some of the best moments that we've had with together.
And you can get silly with it. Like the character I'm playing now is the stupidest character I've ever played, and he's got a ridiculous accent. He's 5 foot, like. He's a joke, but that doesn't mean that you can't also have serious moments with them. I think Sam Riegel is an obvious answer to that question.
Yeah. Also, like Marlo and Lowell. Yeah. Like Lowell, I've never played a low intelligence character before because I didn't know how to pretend to be stupid. The first time I played it, oh my God, those characters had the best roleplay dynamic that we have ever had with characters before. Because it ended up turning from an I hate you, you're so annoying, get out of my face, to that's my sibling and I'm gonna do everything I can to protect them.
Yeah.
It was so good.
D&D's awesome. Everybody should try it at least once. If you don't like it, then I don't know what's wrong with you. Clearly we're the smart ones here.
That's right. That's its own diagnosis if you don't like D&D, I guess.
It should be, honestly.
All right. Well, Courtney and Lycan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been wonderful speaking with you, and we're thrilled to consider you friends of the show for sure. We've had a great time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And thank you, dear friends, for spending time with us this week. Please check us out on our Instagram or at our website, infernalschoolhouse.com. Oh, and we sell stuff on Etsy too. And as we mentioned, we are beginning our Monster of the Week live stream on Monday, March 4th. Are you scared? Because we are. Bye, everybody. Thank you.